Hi, everybody. So the other day, I was jogging around the block near my house, and there was this really nice car. And I don't know cars. It was very nice, though. I can tell you right there. I hadn't seen anything like that in the neighborhood. I'm not a car person. You can tell the difference when you walk by like $100,000 car and like just like a regular nice car. This was probably more than that. Really nice, and it was blue. That's what I know about cars. It was a blue, nice car. So you internet sleuths can figure it out. But the reason I noticed it wasn't just it was nice. I mean, that was what drew my eye. But the trunk was kind of ajar. People going in and out, maybe moving some stuff at the house there parked at. I mean, it was in my neighborhood. It wasn't trashy, but it looked like maybe it was someone visiting, the more successful relative visiting their like disappointment in comparison sibling. To extrapolating a lot, but that's just the read I had on it. It was ajar, and I was moving past it on my jog, so I couldn't help but notice there was an attache case, and it wasn't just sitting in the trunk; it was kind of sticking out, almost like that was what had stopped the trunk from closing. You think someone closing this is going to notice? Oh, it stopped on this case. There's no stuffs on the case like someone tried, so I didn't know what was going on. I just looked, and as I walked by, I heard click, and I'm looking, and the attache case swings open, and I'm like, guys. I mean, there's no one there with me, but I'm like freaking out, and I kind of tend to verbalize when I freak out. Can you tell? It opened. I was like, what on earth is happening? We got an open trunk and now an open attache case. Did Gandalf cast a automatic opening spell on all this? Um, so I stopped running. I'm sorry to say. I'm a nosy Parker. What can I try not to get in people's business, but when their business jumps out at me, I'm not. I don't have the willpower to just be like, this isn't my place. If things escalate, I'll get to that point, but it's more out of fear, and I tell myself it's because I've realized it's not my place, so I don't feel like shame at my intense fear. But I wasn't afraid yet. I was just weirded out. That attache case open, so I stop and I'm like looking at it. I don't want someone to come out and be like, "Get the hell away from my, expensive car, you thief!" I'm catching my breath. I don't. It's not like I jog 20 miles every day. It's nice here. I'm trying to get outside more. This case opens and I lean forward and I sniff at it. I like to smell things. I barely can. Something's wrong with my nose. I can barely smell, but what little I do smell makes me feel like connected to that sense. So it's really, I didn't smell anything. I sniffed, but nothing. It wasn't like some kind of odor horde in that case. But I'm leaning down. And there's no light coming out. It's not like a Pulp Fiction type thing. It's just a case. There's nothing glowing. I don't smell anything, as I indicated. I leaned down and I heard something though. It was like a cough, like you're clearing your throat, like that. And it wasn't coming from behind me like the rich guy be like, "Excuse me, you're staring at my car." It was coming from inside the case, and this was very disturbing. And then the case started flapping like a muppet. And it was like, "Hey, buddy, how do you like the trunk?" And I was like, "How do I like it? How would I know?" It's not like I've. And then I felt hands on my back, and the people who owned the car did come back. They were trying to push me in the trunk, but here's where I lucked out. The trunk was, as I said, not fully open nor fully closed. It was kind of ajar, just enough for an attaché case to stick out and sort of flap like a muppet. So they pushed me, and I did fall, and I kind of clung to my head on their car, and it hurt, but and the trunk almost closed on my crotch, which would have been very embarrassing because if there's one part of me, if they're going to get only one part of me and drive it away in the trunk of a car, not my first choice, you know. Um, but I dodged it and I kind of bounced off. My head was like ringing, but I still knew enough. Like I'm not letting this guy thinks just because he has a nice car, he can stuff joggers in his trunk. And who knew what that talking attaché case? I mean, it didn't have like giant googly eyes all of a sudden or anything, but wouldn't have been much help. It was already creepy enough. It could talk and try to eat me, and for all I know, I escaped the trunk eating my crotch. And this attache case gets me. So I don't want nothing to do with it. I just want to finish my jog. I like him almost to like the end of the song I don't really like, so maybe they're going to play one I do like. So when the guy came at me to shove me back in the trunk, I just sort of did this little pirouette. It was like a judo thing. I don't know. I certainly never trained. I think it was just sheer question of adrenaline and just instinct. Slammed his head on the trunk, bounced it off, but this time I used the momentum with him. I sort of elbowed him in the back, and then when he was like, ugh, I poof, bounced him again. He wasn't out. I'm not very strong, and this guy he wasn't huge, but he was all amped up. He was ready to shove me in the trunk and feed me to his attaché case or whatever he was going to do. I wasn't having it. I was like, bro, no. He bounced off the second time, and he sort of fell on the ground, and I like kicked him in the crotch because I've seen enough horror movies where they don't like obliterate the bad guy after they think they've killed him. That's not going to be me. And want this guy to have to walk it off before he chases me jogging around the block. So I'm like, please don't, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't come up with a pithy line. It wasn't like, not today. Or you see the new Doctor Strange movie where she's like, go back to hell. Like, why did they make her say that? She would have looked a lot cooler if she just blasted those teammates. That's not a good line. If they're like, she could have been like, tell Satan I said I'm coming for him next or something cool. I don't know if that's cool, but it's cooler than go back to hell. What was I saying? Yes, I didn't have a good line. I was just like, please don't do that to me. And frankly, I would appreciate it if you don't do it to others. I'm never good on the spot with like pithy. It always burns my ass when I see other people who have that, and then it's always like 5 days later when I'm like getting out of the shower, and I'm like, I should have said blah, and it hasn't been 5 days since this happened. So I'll get back to you with what I should have said to this guy. And he had a nice car, but when I looked at him finally, it was like those people where it's like they have a really nice car that costs like half as much as their living space and nothing else, and you realize they're like paying 40% of their money that they make for their mortgage or their rent. They're paying 55% for their car, and then they're eating ramen noodles, and they want people to think they're cool, but then no judgment. If that's what you like, that's what you like. But he was dressed like he was one of those guys. I mean, I look at I'm not a clothes judger, but people who drive cars like that usually are. It was my experience because I hang with the upper crust quite. I've absorbed their sort of manners. I don't adhere to them, but I'm familiar, very familiar. He was kind of dressed like that. And I'm like, why are you even trying to feed people to your attaché case? And he's like, do you know what it does if it's hungry? And I'm like, why don't you just throw it out? Throw it in a river. Tie a bunch of rocks to it. And it's like, you think it wouldn't chomp my arm off if it knew I was trying to tie some rocks? I mean, I'm backing up. It's starting to, like, his crotch is starting to heal up. I'm like, I don't care what it does. Let it eat you. If you can't figure out a way to defeat a sentient case, I don't care. And he's like, well, part of it is I like killing. I like knowing I'm helping kill. I was like, so you got like a little shop of horror things with a case, like a suitcase looking briefcase thing, with no songs. Like the cast is terrible if you and this non-googly eyed case, like get some googly eyes. If you're gonna go for it and get some songs. He's like, well, who's gonna write songs? And this is where it was cool. I was like, dude, seriously? I was starting to walk back towards him a little, like get closer. I'm like, that's the issue? That's the holdup? I love to write songs. And I think I could really come up with something, a scenario and, like kind of book and the songs for this. He's like, you want to go full musical? Like, isn't that just copying Little Shop of Horrors? And I was like, no, dude. We're going to do reverse musical. People don't sing about what they want. In our musical, the things they want sing about how they don't want the people. And he was like, whoa. He's getting up and dusting himself off. He's like, that just might work. I honestly think that you could straight change the musical scene with something. And honestly, if anything needs to be shook up, it's American musical after all this time. Like, I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm vibing with it. I'm willing to consider this. Let's trade email addresses. Give me like a few days to really cook up something. And if you like the way it's trending, I don't want to put hours and hours into this thing. And then you'd be like, not really my thing. So I'll give you a few suggestions. And if you're not really vibing with them, then we're just going to move on. Okay. Because I don't want to devote too much of my time to failed projects in the past. No, that's amazing. And as he was handing me my email address, he hit some button on his keychain and his trunk popped open. He's like, motherfucker! And he charged me, head down like a charging Chuck. You ever play in Super Mario World? Depending on which way you go after the Yoshi house, he's either in the first level, the level you play first, or the level you could technically play it third because you could go to the Switch Palace. But charging Chuck and he ducks down and runs at you. That's what this guy was doing. And I was like, he thought he had me, like that I wasn't thinking about the danger. But because I was thinking about what kind of songs I would write for a homicidal attaché case that you had to be shoved into a trunk to be eaten by, like that was my opening number. I wanted to explain everything. But of course, it was being sung by the trunk. See, the attaché case wants to eat, so it wouldn't fit into writing a song for a thing that doesn't want the people. But the trunk, no one ever asked the trunk how it felt. Being the scene of so many grisly like murders and the sound that the case made as it chomped the bones, it was disgusted by the whole thing. So it was I was like, I'm a trunk that doesn't want people. Kind of only more tuneful. I'm not going to give away trade secrets here. Obviously, I have to rework all this after what happened. I'm not collab. I'm not, for the record, not collaborating with that guy. Anyway, to make a short story short, because I know not much time has elapsed. This guy tried to kill me, right? But I did the old like Toro thing with like the red. I didn't have a red blanket to shake at him, but I sort of sidestepped him. Really, like the jogging is starting to pay off. And he was like, what? It was like totally like one of those like takes in a cartoon. He was like, what? And he slipped in, and the case was like, opened up, and it was like, feed me, generic, slightly well-off guy with a fancy car. And I'm like, I get the reference. I was like, I may not agree with the attaché case morally, but the way it tied the whole thing up into a neat, like, parody of a Little Shop of Horrors sort of bow, it was like, because this could have gone a number of ways. I didn't set off on this jog like thinking I was gonna like. I haven't even seen that, and I love Howard Ashman, so it's like it doesn't make sense. I'll tell you, I know what I'm doing this weekend, but what I'm not doing is worrying about that guy coming after me again because and just gristle and bone, and I think what looked like an optic nerve flew out. I knew because of the pulp at one end. It was like kind of thin at one end and pulpy at the other. No retinal parts attached, but I'm not a surgeon or anything like that. That's just my guess, and a guess it must remain because I did not take it in for analysis. I left that guy be. Left the gristle be. I didn't get any on me, so I don't need to. I mean, if the police ask me for a description of what happened, I'll tell them what I saw. But it's just going to be like, maybe I'll send them the link to this because I basically it's all in the poem. So finished my job and got home, and my wife's like, what happened? What was it like?" I was like, "Oh, there's this jerk with a car, and he was like trying to push me in the trunk." And she's like, "Man, why do you want him to put you in the trunk?" And I was like, "Don't even get me started." And then like she's like, "No, seriously, like what are you talking about?" So I sang her the first song, that one I was working on, and she's like, "Oh, um, don't ever do that again." And I was like, "What? Go on a jog?" And she's like, "Go on many, many jogs for quite some time and then come back to me. But no, don't ever sing again because your voice made me want to stab you with a fork." And I was like, "Lady, I almost got eaten by an attaché case, and now my wife wants to stab me with a fork. Um, why is life so hard? They never tell you when you're a kid. They never tell you this is what it's like. You work all day, you get nearly eaten all afternoon, and you get threatened to be stabbed all night. And if there's one moral I want you to take from this story, it's that maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you should just let yourself get eaten. Because when you come home from surviving getting eaten to get stabbed, and I thought my voice, I like singing it. I don't care. I don't care if people like the way it sounds. I like the way doing it makes me feel. Okay. Anyway, I went back and got the keys. Now I have a new blue car.